friends, welcome to the All-Canadian Reptile Girl. I'm Annaliese, if you believe the hype, and today we are going to be talking about some wild stuff that happens to snakes when they eat. No, not how they swallow their prey, that's been done. I'm talking about some amazing biological processes going on under the surface that you might not know. Let's go. Think of snake feeding, they think of the incredible way that they can manage to swallow something up to 5 times larger than their head. I get it. It's pretty impressive and there's a lot going on there. It took me 2 videos to explain it properly and I still had to skip a bunch of stuff. Probably the second most common thing folks think of is how snakes, prepare their meals, constriction or envenomation. Or, if we're talking about garter snakes, just pick a spot to bite and just start swallowing it alive.
Yikes!
Yeah. We're not talking about that either. No. Today we are going deeper into the guts of the digestion process. Okay, so if there is an easier pet to feed than a creature whose eating schedule ranges from only once a week to possibly once every few months, I'll take your recommendations in the comments because as far as I'm concerned, nothing beats the feeding schedule of a snake. We're talking a few minutes of prep, a few seconds of dangling the food item in front of your snake, followed by the time it takes you to sing your ABCs while you wash your hands. Later on, maybe a few seconds of checking the enclosure to ensure that the entire meal was eaten, and even if it wasn't, what's that, like a couple more seconds to put it in the trash? And finally, at some point in the next few days to a few weeks, or even months, you'll have a minute of scooping out some poop and singing as you're washing your hands again. So what's that? Like somewhere around 5 minutes a week, maybe 5 minutes a month depending on the species of your snake. That's all that it takes to complete a full feeding cycle. How cool is that? But what is an easy and quick thing for us requires a lot of work from the snake once they get their lovely meal down. I want to paint a picture for you so you fully appreciate how awesome your snake really is. Here we go. You've just finished way too much, but it all looked so good, so you ate 2 plates too many holiday meal. I know you've all done this at least once. And you're feeling full up, like a stuffed sausage, right? Now, you might know that eating a very large meal can increase your risk of heart attack. Some studies suggest up to 400% increase for the next 2 hours after the meal. But why? Because overeating can stress out our system and take your personal digestive coping capabilities to the max. Do you ever get sweaty after eating a large meal or notice an increase in your heart rate after eating while you're just lounging or napping on the couch? Ever wonder why it's not recommended to exercise strenuously after eating? Because our bodies aren't designed to handle both the digestion of a meal that's, let's be honest, is large enough to sustain us for a day or two, and simultaneously supplying our muscles with the blood, oxygen, and energy to move at top speed. Have you ever tried running after overeating? Yeah, it doesn't end well. So what do you do to help your body deal with all those extra delicious helpings of mashed potatoes and gravy or pie or whatever it was? Food coma comes to mind. Or probably a lot of this.
Bye-bye belt!
Wouldn't it be so cool instead if we could just amp up our system's ability to digest excessive amounts of indulgence? What if we could build bigger organs and make more blood to get all the necessary blood and oxygen to our digestive system? Which should also be bigger or longer, I guess, so that it can handle all that food. A bigger digestive system would mean less stress to our overall body, right? What amazing ingenuity! Man, I wish someone had thought of that. Oh, wait, someone did. You guessed it, snakes. Snakes thought of this. Or should I say they evolved this way? I mentioned earlier that we are not designed to eat and run. And that's a pretty standard setup for most animals. There's a tremendous amount of energy required to break down the food. This is especially true of snakes whose meals are so large that they can sustain them for weeks or even months, and they need to digest it quick enough so that it doesn't rot inside of them, which is gross. I don't think I needed to tell them that, but it is gross. So, to handle the increased demand on their system, snakes, as they digest their meal, will construct larger organs and muscles to facilitate the process as it happens. I am going to repeat that. The snake will build a bigger entire digestive system in order to accommodate the increased demand on its organs. It's not just the digestive system that hulks up either. The snake actually increases in size, the heart and liver will also grow, and I'm not just talking about little Timmy going up a clothing size. I mean, a snake's intestines will double its mass. Its liver will grow up to 3 times its normal size, and pancreatic enzyme activity increases threefold. I keep wanting to say thricefold. Will increase thricefold. Anyway, in order for all the newly developed tissue to function optimally, a huge supply of oxygenated blood is required, so they make more. But how do they move this extra blood around? To boost its blood pumping capabilities, snakes rely on something called cardiac hypertrophy. After consuming a large prey item, a snake will release large amounts of cardiac protein that enlarges the heart muscle by 40%, allowing them to pump up to 50% more blood while at rest. Snakes pump more blood snuggled up somewhere digesting their meal than they do while they're racing along the ground slithering at full speed. That is amazing. Now imagine, if you will, that we humans did possess the ability to increase the size of our heart, livers, and digestive tract in order to more easily digest our prey. Maybe I should have used a different word than prey. Now imagine, if you will, that we humans did possess the ability to increase the size of our hearts, livers, and digestive tract in order to easily digest our meals. It does sound really cool, eh? Well, maybe not. Can you think about how uncomfortable that would be? Your heart would grow 40%. Could you even do that in there? What about your lungs? Wouldn't your ribs get in the way? Even the fittest and trimmest among us, with no visceral fat squeezing our guts, aren't in any position to emulate our legless relatives. There's not a lot of room in there. Space aside, our heart and lungs are locked in place in our chest cavity thanks to our diaphragm and a breastbone. There's enough room for them to do their job, but are unable to move around and find a more comfortable spot. But do you know whose heart can move around, shifting its position within the body? Yes, obviously it's a snake. Snakes don't have a diaphragm or a breastbone, so when they eat a large prey item, their heart can scooch around a bit. This allows 2 things to occur. 1, it allows their food choices to have a greater range in size, which means that they can eat a meal whose body mass can be almost equal to their own without damaging the heart. And 2, this makes it easier for the heart to have the room to grow and increase its muscle mass so that it can pump more blood to aid in digestion. It's all well and good to be able to eat large prey, but if the food just squishes all your organs in place, then how would you be able to properly break down that meal? Of course the heart needs to be flexible in its position. And here's a neato fact about the process of digestion. Once the snake is done breaking down its dinner, the snake is also able to digest the parts of itself that it grew to help digest its meal. Metabolic processes will return to normal and the heart and liver will shrink down again. So we've got the heart sorted, but they need oxygen too, yeah? How do they do that while they're eating? I know what you're thinking. You can quite comfortably breathe while you're munching on your dinner. I know, so can I. But what you and I can't do is breathe while swallowing. And swallowing is the whole eating process for a snake because, with a few exceptions, snakes don't chew their food. Inside a snake's mouth is a neat tube called a glottis that connects to the windpipe and down into its lungs. It allows the snake to continue breathing while its mouth is full of food. And just like the heart being able to move around, the glottis is able to shift over to the side to keep from being pressed closed. This is fascinating in its own right, but I've already talked about that in my snake face videos. And that is not really what I'm talking about today. No, this is way cooler than some lame snorkel. I'm talking about something I learned from a new study that has uncovered another amazing adaptation constricting snakes have evolved. This study was done specifically with boa constrictors, but presumably extends to other snake species too. What scientists were trying to figure out was how a boa constrictor could keep from suffocating while it was constricting and eating. The glottis helps provide access to air when they have a mouthful of chow, but how can the lungs function when squeezing so hard to subdue their prey, or when their swallowed meal is smooshing up and squishing the old bagpipe? Scientists found that these snakes employ something called modular lung ventilation. And in order to understand what this is and how it works, you need to understand a little about the anatomy of a snake's respiratory system. I mentioned earlier that snakes don't have a diaphragm to work with the ribs to help regulate their breathing. Instead, they use their chest muscles. all of them is a chest muscle, to help move their ribs to draw air into their lung. All snakes have what's called a right hand lung, which is a long, slender lung that extends down the right side of their bodies. Some snakes do have a little left lung, but if there is a left lung present, it is likely underdeveloped or just vestigial, or even just a tracheal stump. There's something funny about a tracheal stump. It is thought that maybe the left lung was the original lung type in ancient snakes, and that the right-hand lung evolved over time as a means for snakes to consume larger prey. Other experts think that it's the other way around, but what is known is that the far end of the lung is not really used in everyday breathing, and kind of resembles a deflated balloon. I feel kind of bad for it.
Why did you say it that way?
Because it's funny. Whereas the front end of the lungs are filled with air sacs and lots of blood vessels, indicating that it is clearly the region of the lung where gas exchange occurs. What makes this interesting is how this affects the constricting process for boas and other constrictors. In a recent, March of 2022 recent study, scientists used blood pressure cuffs and x-rays to observe the bone movements. They also monitored nerve signals and breathing. They applied the cuff around the part of the snake that is typically used when constricting prey, and found that when these ribs could no longer expand and breathe, which is what happens when boas squeeze their prey, then the snake would begin using a section of ribs towards the tail end to breathe. Then, when they removed the cuff, the ribs at the far end of the lung would cease moving and the ribs near the front end would resume normal breathing function. What the scientists believed was happening was that the back end of the lungs acted like a bellows, drawing air in through the lungs so that the gas exchange could still occur. And that once the constricting pressure was released, the bellows effect was no longer required for normal breathing. So the back end of the lungs returned to an inactive state. Tutuba, that I had over the fronts there, likes to squeeze her dinner for hours before she'll eat it. I guess I never really thought about her not being able to breathe while she was doing that, but it does make sense. Think about it. Can you squeeze with all your might for an extended period of time and breathe normally at the same time? Eventually you'll have to relax, even for just a second, to take a breath. But for a snake, that could mean losing their dinner. So they've developed a workaround to not die while constricting their prey. How cool is that? Before I cover the last and grossest bit of digestion biology, I'd like to say a quick but sincere thanks to my patrons on Patreon. Their support allows me to continue to bring you cool videos about all sorts of weird reptile stuff and directly contributes to the care of my animals. As a patron, for as little as $2 a month, you can get early access to my videos, behind the scenes stuff, vlog posts, and even super secret stuff you don't get to see on YouTube or Instagram. Head on over to patreon.com/allcanadianreptilegirl to see the different ways that you can help. Oh yeah, don't forget to hit the like button and check out my affiliate link for NordVPN, the best way to protect yourself from bad guys online. Checking out those links also helps me out a whole bunch too. Okay, on to the last and, as promised, grossest bit of biological business. I won't go into too much detail because it does have a video all on its own, but I'll give you the quick and dirty explanation of adaptive ballast, or, as I prefer to call it, a poop anchor. Yep, you heard that right. Many species of heavy-bodied ambush hunting snakes have a tendency to hold on to their poop for months, and months, and months. Why? Well, the clue is in the name, adaptive ballast or poop anchor. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. Both names are equally cluey about what is going on. It works like this. Storing poop instead of leaving it for someone to step in, snakes can increase their mass up to 20%, by the way, particularly at the back half without expending any additional energy to maintain it. This provides a more stable base and increases friction to launch a more powerful strike, and more mass for their prey to contend with once the snake gets hold of them. The stored poop acts as an anchor. Poop anchor. Get it? In the event that they need to move quickly or are traveling a long way, they can very quickly drop that extra weight and off they go. like a ballast, adaptive ballast. Yeah? See? Clues. So there you have it. From sneaky breathing to enlarged organs that make digestion so much easier to hoarding poop. Snakes have certainly evolved amazing ways to make the most of every meal. Did you know that snakes grow heart and digestive tissues every time they eat? Or that boas have a neat way to not die when they are constricting? Let me know in the comments below. And if you are interested in doing some reading about any of the topics of today's video, the links to all that information are in the description below. Thanks again for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. All that super fun YouTube stuff. And until next time, remember to nurture all nature. Bye!
Sorry.
Rooched up and squishing the old windbags, the old bagpipes, the old thingies. I'll do that again.
Yeah, do you think?
That's bad. I keep wanting to, yeah.
Stop kissing the snake.
Never! They must know my love for them. I had to round it out. No, 3.
3. Yeah, I know.
Good things come in 3s. So do bad things. A lot of things come in 3s.